optimizing your DX, so your developer experience. So for those of you who don't know what developer experience means, that has nothing to do with your seniority, so I'm not going to tell you how you can level up yourself from being a junior developer to being an experienced senior developer. So, but I will come to that in a minute. So a few words about me maybe. I'm Manuel B. I'm a freelance JavaScript developer for quite some time now. I specialized in React in 2015. Have done a lot of React projects for several clients, large and small, and for startups and corporates and all that. And yeah, you can find me in all social networks as Manuel B. Earlier this year I published a book about React. Yeah, you can read it online for free. Yeah, you find it at lernen.react-js.dev. There's also a printed version there that you can buy, so if you want a discount, you can come to me later. So yeah, I guess everyone knows what user experience means. So developer experience is the equivalent to user experience, but on the developer side. So that means that it describes the experience that developers have when they are working with your code base or your library, your SDK, your API, your documentation and all that. So that is roughly what developer experience means. And why is that important? So it is important to provide a good developer experience because bad developer experience can lead to frustration among developers. Frustration among developers can lead to demotivation. Demotivation causes developers to write bad code, and bad code will inevitably result in bad software. So I guess that's clear. So signs for bad developer experience, there's a lot of signs. There's inconsistent code base, code clutter, failing or slow builds, unnecessary complexity, bad documentation, outdated dependencies, technical debt, chaotic dev processes, and this can go on and on and on. So for a few weeks ago, my friend Tejas Kumar gave a talk at the ReactConf, and he said when the developer experience is good, usually the user experience tends to follow. So that means that if you take care about your code base and you really try to write code in a good way without too much technical debt, without too much clutter in your code, keep your dependencies up to date and all that, that in most of the cases leads to a better user experience. And what that not means is that you should not add this 5 megabyte package to your bundle just because it has an amazing API. That is not what developer experience is about. So the key aspects are that developer experience should always serve the product and the user first. Developer experience should always create value. So the value can be that you improve the user experience, or you can get the time it takes to create a build, that you can cut it in half from maybe 20 seconds to 10 seconds, or from 40 seconds to 20 seconds, or even lower. Don't improve the developer experience just for the sake of it. So you should really focus on creating a value. And the value can also be that you have a totally unmaintainable code base with too much broken parts, and so you can also create a value by cleaning up your code base. So if half of your co-workers consider to quit because they don't want to work with your code base anymore, it might be a good idea to improve the developer experience and clean your code base up. So that's also a value that you can create by improving your developer experience. But you should never prioritize the X higher than UX. So the user should always come first when you're building an app. So it's nice, and everyone likes to spend a day to really squeeze the performance out of your build process and keep the build time from to get the build time down from like 40 seconds to 38 seconds maybe, and spend hours with optimizing. So maybe don't do that. So how can we fix the bad developer experience? So there's basically two ways. There are processes and there are tools. And today I want to talk only briefly about the processes and then quickly go over to the tools, because I think that's the more important, the more interesting part for most of you. So regarding the processes, you should always document what you're doing and why you are doing it. So when I join a new project, I usually check out the repository. I ask for Git access, check out the repository, open the README and do whatever the README says. So, and when I'm done with all that, I run yarn start, and then I hope that there's a dev server running that I can use to work with the code base and the app. If that does not work, I ask a coworker for help and let him explain me why it's not working on my machine. And while we are fixing what I was missing while I was doing the steps in the README, I fix the README so that the next developer who joins the team can effortlessly just check out the repository, do whatever the README says, and then get up and running with the project. So you should always have your README up to date. And if you change something and you miss to update the README, do it whenever the next developer sees that there's something missing. So maybe you can go to the office tomorrow, go to work, check out a fresh copy of your repository or of the app you're working on, do all the steps that are in the README and just quickly check if all that works when you're working with a fresh repo. Maybe try that. So what I can also recommend is to always work on branches. Never directly push to master, that really ends in chaos most of the time. So use pull requests to merge your changes when you're done. You can use pull request templates to give a little bit of a checklist if you have remembered to also write tests for all that and all that. So GitHub allows that. I think GitLab also allows pull request templates. So really make use of it and establish a culture of code reviews. So you should never merge code to master without having a colleague of yours had a look or a short review of what you have done. No matter how small the change may be, so you should always have someone else look at your code and press the approval button before you merge. That really leads to a better code base and a more maintainable and understandable code base in the long run. So, and you should always automate all the tedious tasks or automate whatever you can. So every minute or every hour you don't spend on doing things that you could automate, you can spend on improving your actual application, work on new features, work on usability improvements and all that. So whatever you can automate, you should automate. So yeah, let's come to tools. The first tool, or the first two tools, many of you probably already know, but I don't want to not mention them. So the first one is Prettier. It's an opinionated code formatter, and what does it do? It automatically formats your code to provide maximum consistency across your complete code base. It formats code in an understandable and in a readable way, so that you really don't have any pointless discussions about well, you should add a line break here or indent your code a little bit more there. That reduces the mental overhead really a lot. So you don't have to think about formatting anymore. You can really concentrate on what your code is doing and not how your code looks. So I can really recommend to use Prettier if you're not already using it. When you're using it first, I mean, I had to put this tweet on the slides because that's absolutely true. It was true for me. It was like this for many others I know. So at first, when you're first using Prettier, you probably think, hey, why is it formatting my code like this? It looks weird. And then when you're working with it a few hours or 1 or 2 days, you're like, okay, I can get used to it. Maybe it's not that bad. And then when you've really worked with Prettier for 3-4 days or maybe a week, you're like, oh my god, I never want to work without Prettier again. And these are the 3 stages of Prettier really. And Kenzie Dodds said that if you don't like how Prettier formats your code, it's probably because you care too much about formatting, and that's on point. It's just really like that. So give it a try. Even if you don't like it, try to work with it for a week or so, and I promise you, you will like it after a week. Yeah, that's how you install it. Just a simple npm install prettier and you're done. So the next one is ESLint, and quoting their own tagline here, it's a tool to find and fix problems in your JavaScript code. And yeah, prevents you from making common mistakes while writing code. So it catches the potential errors at dev time. So while you're in your editor writing code, it shows you what you have done wrong and where potential errors are, and it really catches them at dev time and not when you run it or when you build it. So you can get instant feedback of where your error might be. So it looks like this is your code editor maybe when you're not using ESLint. And looks quite okay. So, but yeah, there are a few errors in the code. So maybe you have seen the typo in line 3. It should be user. Yeah, happens sometimes. So, but in this little code example, there are 5 errors, and this is how your code looks when you're using ESLint. It shows you directly where these potential errors are. We're importing from a module that doesn't even exist. We're creating an unused variable because we're not even using code from the module that we're importing from. We have an unused variable because we have a typo there. It should be user, of course. Afterwards, we're trying to access a property on an undefined variable, which of course will fail in the browser. So ESLint will tell you that. And then we also have an assignment instead of a comparison. And ESLint tells us all that. And this is really helpful if you're writing code. You get instant feedback of what might be wrong. So highly recommend using it if you're not already using it. I guess most of you are probably. So you can just npm install ESLint and then run ESLint --init on the command line. And yeah, you get a nice default config. So the next one is Git hooks. So Git hooks are very handy because you can automate a few of the annoying things that you would normally do by hand. And for that there's Husky. So Husky says it's commit hooks made easy, and that's exactly what it is. It lets you just run certain tasks whenever something Git related happens. So it can lint and format your files before you commit, for example, run tests before you push. So not everybody likes that, but you could automate your tests and let the push fail when the tests fail. And you can even update your node module. So for example, if a colleague added a node module or a new dependency to your project, you merge the new master branch into your branch or do a rebase or whatever, and you try to start your application and it fails. Why does it fail? Because someone added a new dependency and yeah, posted it maybe to a Slack channel dev announcement, which you've muted long ago because it's just too noisy. So with Husky you can just automate that and yeah, let things happen whenever something Git related happens. So this is a sample Husky config from a real project of mine. So we have a pre-commit hook, which is lint staged. We have a post-merge hook that's install deps post-merge, and Husky is installed, or the Git hooks are installed whenever you install Husky as a dependency to your project. So the next one is lint stage, which I just mentioned. So lint stage runs linters against staged files, staged Git files. And staged means, for those of you who don't know that, so might not be technically 100% correct, but whenever you git add a file, then it is staged. And lint stage runs certain commands only on all those files that are currently staged. So this is an example config, so you can run prettier automatically on every commit on all the JS and TS and CSS files. You can then run ESLint to check all these files if there are any potential errors in it. You can run stylelint, which is similar to ESLint but for CSS on all the style sheets. and all that. So that's really handy, and I can really recommend that. So I've recently added it in a project I'm currently working on. They had a commit hook to run lint, to run ESLint on all the files in the code base, which usually took around 30 to 35 seconds, and with lint staged, I was able to bring this time down to now between 5 and 10, maybe 15 seconds. So that's really helpful. It can really save you some time here. So the next one is install that post merge, and it's, from my opinion, one of the most underrated NPM packages. So there are, last time I checked, only 1,000 downloads a week, and it's 2 years old and it's slowly growing, but it's still only 1,000 downloads per week, and that's not much. So it should be much higher, if you ask me. So what is it doing? It checks your package.json log, and your yarn log on every merge. And whenever the package.json or package log or yarn log has changed, it runs yarn or npm install automatically and removes updates or adds dependencies. So whenever a colleague of yours added a new dependency or removed a dependency or updated a dependency, you will automatically get the new dependencies installed into your project without having the next build fail because of a missing dependency. So that's really helpful, and I can really recommend that. So it's just a simple npm install or install that post merge, add it as a post merge hook to your Husky config, and you're done with that. So the next thing is technical debt, so cleaning up the mess from the past. So for those of you who don't know, technical debt is a concept in software development that reflects the implied cost of additional rework caused by choosing an easy solution now instead of using a better approach that would take longer. This is how Wikipedia explains that. So I try to summarize it in a little bit simpler way. So whenever you choose the easy approach over the correct approach, you're most likely writing code that will potentially make your future work harder. And this is what technical debt means. Just choosing the simple approach over the correct approach, which might take longer. So signs for technical debt are, for example, outdated dependencies, unused dependencies, a lot of to-do and fix-me comments, and a lot more. So maybe I'll talk about outdated dependencies first. So they are a potential security risk and a source for bugs. So, and they get increasingly harder to upgrade the longer they are outdated. So I have had this once, that I was working on a project where the dependencies haven't been updated for over 2 years. And then iOS, I think it was iOS 9 came out, and suddenly the application wasn't running on iOS devices anymore. And the reason was that one of our dependencies was somehow incompatible to something that was changed in iOS 9. And so we updated the dependency, but the dependency also had other dependencies which were incompatible to another dependency we were using. And so we really spent a few days just updating dependencies and fixing bugs in our code that have never been there and that were introduced by new dependencies or by updated dependencies. So you should really try to keep your dependencies up to date. So as a rule of thumb, I would try to update at least once every 3 months all your dependencies. So I do that mostly every month, but I think if you do that once every 3 months, that should be fine. So, but you should never just let your dependencies be outdated for two years or even longer. So that can really be a big risk. So how do you upgrade your dependencies? So there's one simple command. If you're using yarn, you can just run yarn upgrade interactive. That gives you a list of all your dependencies. You can just check them, hit enter, and yarn then automatically automatically updates all your dependencies. If you prefer to do that manually, there's yarn outdated or npm outdated. That gives you a list of all the dependencies you have in your project. with the version you have currently installed, the latest version. It also says if it's a dev dependency or a dependency, so pretty simple to update it. So unused dependencies are also unnecessary noise. So if you have 40 dependencies in your project, but you only need 30 of them, that can potentially slow down your yarn or npm install. If you have huge packages as dependencies that you aren't even using anymore, so just uninstall it. So how do you find them? You can run npx dept check, and that lists you all the unused dependencies. That works pretty fine for production dependencies. It finds a lot of false positives in your dev dependencies most of the time, but for production dependencies it works really well. So if you run npx dept check, you get a list of all the outdated dependencies that you probably can safely delete. The next thing is to do and fix me comments, probably the epitome of technical debt. So you do something that you don't have enough time to do properly, so what do? You leave a comment, right? So, and when was the last time you actually fixed the fix me or did a to-do? That probably a long time ago. So I did a quick search on GitHub for fix me. So there are 103 million places on GitHub with fix me comments that someone wanted to fix later and obviously has never done. So how do you find those comments? There's a tool called Lizot. You can just run npx Lizot and it shows you a really compact list of all the fix me and all the to-do comments. That's from a real world project of mine. It just lists all the to-dos that I have in my code, and then you can create tickets from that or write it into a markdown file. Even supports different output formats. So yeah, go ahead and fix some to-dos. So in summary, so there are hundreds of tools and services to optimize the developer experience and the quality of your code base. So I've only shown you a handful. There are at least, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 tools I could show you as well today. Yeah, it's really easy to over-optimize, so really try to find the middle ground. So you should probably not spend 6 hours a day improving your developer experience and then work 2 hours a day on your actual application. So try to keep the effort minimal, automate a lot of things and all that. So working on developer experience improvement should always create value, as I said. So what value means you can define for yourself. Yeah, and aiming for good developer experience really makes working with your code base enjoyable again. So if you really make people conscious about why it's important to write good code and understandable, clean code, it really improves the long-term quality of your code base. And yeah, that's it. Thanks.